Hi there, welcome back to another quick and easy watercolor painting. I'm Rod Bergeron, and today we're going to talk little bit about color mixing on the page. Okay, so I'm going to put my blue streak across like that, and another blue streak across like that. That's not quite as intense as I was hoping it was going to be. So I'm going to put a little bit more like that. All right. So I want there to be a tree line that comes down a little bit this way and a small tree line over here. And I'm going to start that tree line with Payne's Gray the way I normally do. We're going to put our Payne's Gray in there just like that. Okay. I'm going to put a little swoop of Payne's Gray across here. And you see how that's sort of bleeding up there. And I don't really want that to bleed up that far. So I'm going to take this little lid that I have. This is from my water container, but I'm just going to lift this up and set that underneath there, and you'll see that water just instantly starts to run back down this way. And that's what I'm going for, but you can see that sky also started to move. All right. Let's get into this. So I'm going to put into this little bit of a tree line right here. Actually, before I go too much further, I'm going to extract a little bit of that because that's just too wet. So I've just taken my brush, drying it off on the paper towel, and just touch it into that. That's called a thirsty brush. Just extract a little bit of that. All right, let's lay this back down flat again. Make sure I'm still in frame. All right, that's pretty good. Okay, so I'm gonna take this brush now. I'm not gonna rinse it out or anything. I'm gonna put it into my green wash that I have here, and I'm just gonna touch it in a few places. Maybe pick up a little bit more. And we're going to put a little bit of that green across here and across here. Okay, so if we think about the color wheel, we want to make green is made out of blue and yellow. So if I want to make this lighter, I'm going to add yellow to it. And you'll see I'm just tapping the brush on in a few places, and I just put a swoop of yellow across there. This is all bleeding back up here again, but we're going to leave that for a second. So yeah, I want to make that lighter, so I put the yellow into it. All right. Another yellow that we have is yellow ochre. And so I'm just going to touch this in a few places with the yellow ochre. Okay, let's see what we get from that. Now, I want to put some scribe lines into this, so I'm going to make some fairly intense yellow ochre marks down here. So I'm just taking this brush, putting it right onto the yellow ochre, and then touching it onto the page. I'm going to do the same thing up here. Okay. All right, now I'm going to take this, which is my #1 round watercolor brush, and I took an X-Acto knife and sharpened the one end of it. Now you could do the same thing with a barbecue skewer, wooden toothpick, whatever. Anything wooden. I'd avoid using anything metal. It won't, it'll sort of cut into the page a little bit too much. And for me, that's not really what it is that I'm going for. So I'm going to let this sort of run back down here for a second. See if I can get this to go in that direction. So I'm tipping the board so that that's going to run down here. That's pretty good. I'll make sure we're back in frame again. Maybe take my brush and extract a little bit more of that out of there. We don't really want that to run up there any more than that. Okay, so if you look at this, you can say it's fairly light. Like there's not much darkness going on in here at all. So I'm going to take my Payne's Gray, and I'm going to touch my Payne's Gray in a few places here and here, and just let that all bleed. I'm going to go back to the Payne's Gray right from the palette, a little bit darker. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're just going to scribe out of here a few places. Create some trees or some brush, whatever it might be. All right, now I'm going to rinse my brush off really well. I'm going to knock most of the water off it, and I'm going to put this brush right into my blue. I'm going to put the blue in here in a few places, and you'll see that blue will mix with that yellow that's on there, and it should give us a slightly different green. Okay, it might be intensely blue, Who knows? But that's the fun of watercolor paint and this loose style of watercolor painting. Okay, so let's dry that off. Dry that off. That's pretty good. All right, I'm gonna take one more thing I'm gonna do here before I do across the middle. I rinse my brush out really, really well. I'm gonna pick up a whole bunch of yellow. And now I'm gonna touch the yellow into this blue. A few other places, maybe a little bit up here. I kind of like what's happening there, so I'm gonna leave that alone. All right, so now we have to decide what it is we're gonna put across the middle. And to me, I think this is kind of screaming for us to put sienna in there. So I'm gonna put some red sienna on my brush, and I'm going to try to go from one side of the page to the other, one long swoop. And I'm gonna I'll have to turn the brush like this to make it narrow enough to go through there, okay? So let's try this. All right, that didn't turn out too bad, right? Let's pick up a little bit more of this sienna right here. And I'm gonna pick this up a little bit more intensely. Put some more of that across here. I kind of like what's happening in there. That's pretty cool. All right, just like that. All right. Now I'm not gonna rinse this out. I'm gonna put this right onto the sienna. I'm gonna put the sienna in a few places like that and let that all blend together. All right, so if you look at this, I would look at this and I would say there's not enough dark on the page here. There's some dark down here, but there's just not enough. There's just not enough darkness. And that's probably enough. All right. One last thing before we call it quits here. I'm gonna get out my little bag of salt. I'm gonna put a few grains of salt up here, a few here, a few across here, and maybe just a couple there. So I'm trying to minimize the salt. I'm trying to not get it everywhere. Just use it sparingly for a little bit of an effect. All right, let's let this dry and see what happens. All right, let's have a look at this. Look at all these different greens that we have here. All those different greens. And this is what I was talking about, the mixing on the page, not having to worry so much about mixing colors on the palette, but allowing the colors to mix on the page. So you can see there's dark, there's the blue, that's the dark areas. There's a little bit of Payne's gray in there in some places. This is certainly Payne's gray down here. All these different greens that come out of this, and then the salt kind of added all these. Look at this little effect going on here with the salt. And the sky turned out really well too on this one. I think when you put the mat on there, you see this turned out really well. I mean, it's got lots of different effects in it. Look at this little bit of yellow, when I put the yellow on there very early on, that yellow sort of popped through. Anyways, I think it turned out pretty well. Let's move the mat around here a little bit and see what we get. Anyways, if you're currently a subscriber, thank you very much. And if you're not currently a subscriber, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'd love to know where you're from. If you could drop me a comment in the comment section and let me know where you're watching from, I'd really appreciate it. And I hope you have an awesome day painting. If you're looking for any of the materials and supplies that I use, they're all listed in the description of the video. And there's links to Amazon in there as well. All right, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you again next time.